Hey guys, Sure Midget here. So I have a Polar Star F2 installed in a KRYTAC SPR. This is a customer's gun. It came from, in fact, I'm not sure what state it came from. He's moving to Florida in the summer. So he's going to be playing in Florida supposedly. So he sent me a link to Miami Indoor Airsoft. I guess he's going to try to play there. Now, this is a long gun for indoor, but he can do what he wants. He has a Velcro pad up here and a rail here, which I'm pretty sure uses a flashlight. So this is kind of his all do it all gun, I guess. It is adjustable for FPS with HPA, so he could play indoor. It's just a little long, but you know, whatever floats his boat, it's totally up to him. So we'll talk about the externals here. It's pretty bare because he took off most of his externals when he shipped it. So it's basically just a plain old KRYTAC. But we got the KRYTAC stock, we got the FCU with a JST battery in there. It is the gray version, so it's got the gray Mark II body, which is billet style, which is cool. Defiance grip, a IGL, blue colored, which goes all the way into the engine. Ambidextrous selector switch is still intact, because with an F2 you can keep that. With V12s you can't, in Fusion engines you also can't. So with the F2 you can though, and like jacks and F1s you can, the drop-ins in the original gearbox shell. I believe he has an optic on here. Some of the paint's chipped, so it looks like there was something mounted here. He has a little piece of Velcro for a flashlight and a rail right there for a flashlight. So again, I assume he uses it indoors because he acted like he wanted to. There is a CNC aluminum hand stop, or actually more like angled foregrip rather. Can act as a hand stop as well because it will stop your hand from going forward, but it's an angled foregrip to put your hand in, but you can like hold it any which way, I guess. Totally up to you. I believe it's a 16-inch barrel is what these SPRs come out of the box. Stock barrel, hop-up unit, but a Lonex 50-degree bucking in there, brand new. It also has a HPA speed trigger in black. Now the F2 comes with a red poppet and a red nozzle. Now they're colored red, but the red poppet that comes inside of this engine is the exact same efficiency, or it puts out the same air as a Fusion engine red nozzle or red poppet. So you're getting a upgraded poppet out of the box and a nozzle, because the nozzle is bored out on this on the F2s to basically around the same as a Fusion engine red nozzle. So some people ask me what engine is best to get, blah blah blah. There's a lot of options, good options, and every engine has its pros and cons. And the F2s are pretty good in most facets of the adjustments. Like the F2s are just a great system out of the box. They're one of the most efficient engines. The F2 is like right behind the F1 supposedly. Polar Star was saying the F1's their most efficient engine, but for a dual solenoid system and being able to do closed bolt mode for a dual solenoid system, it is the most efficient. So I did all these settings that I normally do. I did shorten the trigger pull. It's not like super short, because this trigger only has one adjustment screw, so then I had to use the adjustment screw and then also do a plastic shim, and there's just a lot of space between this trigger and the trigger board. It's really weird. I prefer retro arms triggers. Those are, easier to shim in my opinion, but the trigger pull is still pretty short. And with it being a F2 micro switch, you can hammer the trigger. So there's a lot of advantages to HPA. There are a lot of people out there that really hate on the system. People jewel creep. Most fields compensate for jewel creep nowadays. Most. So when you go to a field and people are constantly complaining, like, oh, he must be jewel creeping, blah, blah, blah. Most of the time it's not the case, because fields will chrono 1.5 joules with 3s. Which is about 380 with the 2. So that's where this gun sits. 85 PSI on my regulator, shoots 380 with the .2, which is 1.5 joules with the 3. So that is for outdoor use with this gun, semi, full auto, 30 rounds a second, pretty decent rate of fire with a decent joule out of it for outdoor. For indoor, Miami Airsoft, supposedly they allow 400 with a .2 for HPA, which is ridiculous, because then you put 3s, you put 3 2s, 3 6s, and your joule creeping is going up to 1.7, 1.75, 1.8 joules with really heavy BBs, which is absolutely ridiculous. I don't think anybody should be shooting 400 with an HPA system indoors. That is bonkers. It really is. Because people will use heavier BBs, because HPA systems generally like heavier BBs. So it's kind of normal to use heavier BBs. So it's normal for people to be jewel creeping with an HPA system. So for him, I have it set down to 360 with a 0.2 at 80 PSI, which gets 1.3 joules with 0.3s, roughly 1.3, 1.35. So he's going to be okay to use this at that joules indoor. Semi-auto, just fine. I do have a KRYTAC high cap with 0.3s. These are Airsoft Alpha. I'd recommended him to get like G&G or KRYTAC. He's going to see what brand BBs he can get. Alright, so I got my Redline SFR set to 85 PSI. I have a 45 cubic inch, or sorry, an 88 cubic inch 4500. It only has 1,000 PSI left, and then I'm totally out of air. So let's make it count for this gun. Again, this is very efficient, and it's a very large tank. But I prefer overhop, so I'm shooting out into this field, and these BBs are going, I'd say, 220 feet very consistently. And it's hitting pretty decently on those targets. And obviously with an F2, there's no trigger delay. That's one awesome thing about HPA. I mean, you're spending it's like, what are these, 450? The F2s for an HPA system. And people expect you not to spam your trigger. Like, some people will legitimately complain and yell at you for it. And it's like, bro, I spent $450 on this system, and this dude spent good money to have me tune it, especially at safe distances. Most players play like a normal person and don't go around a corner and put 30 into somebody. A couple people do that, and then all these people on the internet want to go, "Ree! All speed softers are like that." And it's actually like legitimately hurting this sport, because, you know, somebody shows up at a field with a dye mask, and like I've done, and I get blamed for things that happen when I'm not even at the field that day. This was a couple years ago at a Warden, but it just goes to show you that facts don't even have to be on people's sides. All they have to do is go and complain, and you're pretty much out of there. That's what happened with me. This is a properly built gun shooting the correct feet per second for outdoor. Again, his outdoor field, might allow him to shoot 400 with 0.2s. He could pop 2s in here, shoot 400, put 3s in here, and then get 1.7 joules. His field might allow that. But I'm just letting him know it'd be a better idea to stay at 1.55 and under with 0.3s, because you're already getting a pretty decent trigger response and rate of fire out of it. Now, if a field allows 400 with a 0.2 and they don't compensate for jewel creep, but they're very strict on semi-auto only, then sure, crank it up to like 90 PSI and shoot the 1.7 with a 0.3, but stuck to semi. But if they allow full auto, then run the 1.5 with 3s and enjoy some full auto. So I say that to every customer. I am very vigilant at making sure that people are shooting the FPS limits that they should, and even most of the time under the FPS limit. But people just don't like to see. It's like FPS doesn't even matter. If you're shooting fast, people just get triggered. Whether or not you're shooting 1 joule, they don't know. They'll still cry to the ref about it, and that stuff happens all the time. And the full auto is just basically a straight line. So 2.5s with an elite force. They are overhopping, of course. I wouldn't use 2.5s in this gun. They're too light. But let's just see how it feeds. F2s are really good at feeding. I mean, it just busts through that. And if I put 3s in here, it'd probably still feed. Let's try a Banff mid-cap with 2.5s. Pretty solid. I'm just testing the capability of these mags. Yeah, this thing is super nice. Yep, fed through the whole thing. So feeding is fantastic on this. Dare I say like 250 feet even. It's going out there really far. What you get when you get a properly tuned HPA system with some decently heavy BBs. Okay, so we're totally out of ammo. Again, that was about 1,000 shots off, and we had 1,000 PSI left in the tank. I do need to go get all my tanks filled here soon. And we're still at probably 800 PSI. So, yes, let me show you. So yeah, the F2 is just incredibly air efficient. I didn't show you what it was before. It was probably at about 12. So it went down maybe 500 PSI or so for about 1,000 rounds. That's pretty dang incredible. So that's pretty much it. Again, he's going to be running high caps, 0.3s out of the box, 85 PSI for outdoor, which is 1.5 joules with a 0.3, and 80 PSI indoor for 1.3 joules with 0.3s. And so it'll be pretty much an all-purpose gun. So thank you for watching. If you have any questions about this video or anything else, let me know, and I will see you on the next one.